Greetings Internet, it's Alex from Barefaced, and I have here those Origin pedals, the Bassrig pedals. So that's the Black Panel 64 and the Super Vintage. You can guess what they do. And I'm going to demo some other stuff before they go back to the good men at, or good people at Origin. I have here my trusty 1-year-old Jack Casady, so it's an Epiphone Jack Casady. Despite appearances, this is actually a fully hollow body. People sometimes refer to them as semi-hollows, but no, it's full floating top. I've not tried it at full tilt in a band, but it sounds lovely in these quieter contexts. And so I've got it on the 50 ohm setting, volume all the way up and tone most of the way off. And we are demoing bass through, this one's going to be going through the Bassrig 64 Black Panel. Settings will pop up in the photo we've taken of it. And that's going into our Activier 110T, though we've got the tweeters switched off, so essentially it's an Activier 110. So this is a fully complete active little cab, so it's like a combo without all the bits you don't really need. So we could actually plug this bass straight in, but then you wouldn't have any EQ because there's not a lot on this bass, there's just a tone knob. But I have two other basses here which prove, as I'll show in a later video, that you can just go straight in and you've got all the EQ in the world. I'll stop talking because I am short of time, as is always the case at the moment. Quite appropriate, thinking of what this song is about. Time, I need more time. Distracted and forgotten where I was going, but anyway, quickly learnt White Rabbit because you know, Jefferson Airplane, Jack Casady, the bass. I think that Black Panel does rather well at that. So next one, let me move some knobs. Pick Jack Casady on the 250 ohm setting, which makes it a little louder and a bit more mid-rangey. It's not as extreme as the 500 ohm setting. This is a weird bass with a low impedance pickup and a transformer. I like it on the 50 ohm setting and knobs all the way up, but other people do different things, and the other things essentially make it more old school sounding. Got almost the same settings on the Bassrig. I now realise I've ended up in the same sort of place, but it's driving a bit harder, playing with a pick, palm muting, because I think this was flats on this originally. But that if you roll the tone off and mute enough, you can get a similar envelope with rounds to flats. It just requires a bit more effort. Right, so we've got the Sire V7, which is essentially an active jazz bass. When I say active, it's an active passive. So I'm finally coming around to this bass. I kind of liked it lots initially, and then was like, and I think basically the strings were too old and tired, and it needed a bit of a setup and a fiddle with, and I found that I'm happiest setting up basses myself because I do it exactly how I want, you know, with the exact pickup heights and the bridge height, and just getting it how I want it for how I play it. So this is much more like it. It's got some bootzillas on it that I bought in 2004 and had forgotten about. I had some bootzillas on this bass here, but which are great strings. They're coated DR hex core stainless steel. They are very bright and spanky. So really exactly the wrong string for what I'm about to demonstrate. But got this set to passive, neck pickup, tone all the way off, and going through the bass rig with what might look like really extreme EQ settings, but the passive tone stack on this bass rig, which is like the black panels, so showman, bassman type thing, flat on that is around 210-2, or pretty much bass all the way off, treble all the way off, and mids all the way up. So it's quite subtle. It's got quite shallow slopes, I think 6 dB slopes and everything, so you can do pretty extreme stuff and it sounds very musical. I've forgotten what I was going to play. Something like John Paul Jones, because that's the sort of tone I was hunting down. Apologies, I'm nowhere near as good a bassist or musician as John Paul Jones, but most of us aren't, are we? I know what's next. Larry Graham. Still keeping it passive on here. Going to make... I'm not turning the tweeter on because this is old school. EQ off, tone all the way up. Did I have the tone all the way up before? Neck pickup, tone all the way off. Did I roll the tone back a bit? I think roll the tone back a bit. Tone back a bit. Only a little bit. Pickup's halfway, so you get that nice mid scoop that makes slap sound quite cool, but then we're cranking the mids on the bass rig because these old school slap sounds, they're not really scooped, they just go wah. quite messy. It's not going on an album, it's just on the YouTube. It'll do. That Bassrig black panel, I really like it for cleaner sounds. The drive is very sensitive. These are quite hot basses. The Jack Casady is really hot when you've got it on 500 ohm setting, reasonably hot on 250 and a bit more moderate on 50, but still quite loud. This is about as loud, and it's no louder on passive mode. It only gets louder when you crank the knobs on active mode. From the sublime to the ridiculous. I'm very pleased to have this back in rotation. I started playing bass when I was almost 18. Decided that I'd like a really good bass for my 21st, sort of save up, big birthday present and all that. And then my dad died just before it, but he left me some money. I got this. So yeah, this was my main bass for a long time. And it's a very different bass. It's an old Warwick, it's an 87 Streamer. The preamp's been messed with, nothing else has really been messed with. I just snapped the truss rod, adjusting it years ago, so it's got a steel truss rod instead of an aluminium, which makes it a bit more neck heavy and a bit growlier. That's what I noticed when it got changed. Otherwise, it is original apart from the preamp and knobs. It now has an East Pro preamp from John East. These bits here are from switches that I put in when it had an Aguilar preamp. The original MEC preamp was not very good. The Aguilar was better, but it didn't... The bass knob was a bit out of control. Anyway, I've got the John East one after a lot of faffing and distraction and everything else getting in the way. And it's really incredible. It takes quite some time to dial in. I say quite some time. If you've got time, so you're not running a business like this and have 3 children like me and no time for anything ever, it doesn't take that long to dial in. But there's 2 knobs on the inside to adjust the bass window frequency. There's a knob on the inside to adjust the treble shelf. You can choose whether there's a pre-shape or not, the active on or off. I need to get a knob that fits this. I appear to have mislaid it or something. So that's passive tone, which we've got all the way up, and then bass and treble stacked, volume, pan pot, blend pot, whatever you call them. 4-string, but it is now strung BEAD because my Stingray has claimed the main 4-string bass position for me. It really suits being BEAD. I can't be the first person to realise this because in the 90s when 5-string started getting popular, loads of people were playing Warwicks. So Stuart Zender in Jamiroquai most notably. I am not going to play his stuff now because I've realised, I tried it earlier and you don't need the Bassrig stuff, we can just DI, so I'll show you that on another video. Tons of new metal, tons and tons of new metal and other heavy stuff. So, and also the Spectres, which the Warwicks were a licensed copy of in the early days and then kind of a dubious rip-off of, and then it all got very murky with the sale of Spectre and then Spectre reappearing. But essentially, this is the Ned Steinberger body shape, which he did for Spectre for the NS bass. The original NS bass was just a single reverse P, I think, and then there was the NS2, which was this one. This stream is a copy of, as I said, this is from 87, so I think this is the period when Spectre didn't exist and Warwick had stopped paying for the licensing because Spectre had gone. Anyway, they do sound different to Spectres because you've got this, the wood makes a difference on basses. This is Wenge and Cherry. Yeah, anyway. I've dropped the B string to G sharp or A flat, depending on your perspective. And on the John East preamp, we have bass about halfway up, treble slightly more, and the 10 kilohertz bright boost up. And we're panned more towards the bridge pickup. Something about these PJs, a JJ, there's a lot of cool sounds with the panning. I think with the PJ, it's more particularly, you've got to be in all the way, or I think they're a little harder to dial in, but they're great once you figure them out. In the past, I've always liked steel strings on it, but kind of slightly deader ones. But tuned down like this, maybe a brighter coated steel string might be a good idea, because if I don't have coated strings, we don't play them enough to wear them out, and they die from corrosion and stuff, which is just expensive and annoying. I never really listened to Mudvayne. I was really into Korn and various other bits of new metal. But Ryan Martini, the bassist from Mudvayne, has the most ridiculous technique. I have no idea why I'm attempting to play any of his stuff, having never played it before. It's completely impossible. I'm not really copying him. I just nicked that first riff and then tried to stay vaguely in the vein of the song. But he's so fast and percussive and... I think it's one of those things where actually the technique changes because you've got such slack strings, and I've only dropped the B string, so the rest are kind of normal tension. And I think you kind of have to embrace that whole thing. There's a lot of plucking towards the body rather than parallel, so a bit like Geezer. We're on the Bassrig Super Vintage, so that's the SVT type thing. Not running a blend at all on that. We're going in a Pantera Rex Brown vibe. He played a Spectre NS2, so the bass that this is a copy of. Neck pickup. It's all about the reverse P. This is BEAD. Rex plays a 5 and down tuners a 4, and then standard tuning, quite a lot of drop D. Anyway, I'm just going to make something up, having had a quick listen to some isolated Pantera bass from Far Beyond Driven. So, and on the bass, front pickup, EQ flat, apart from this bright switch, which is rather effective when it's running through dirt and then tweetless cab. For a lot of the time it's like, whoa, this is too bright, because it's quite a big boost at 10 kilohertz. But with that, it's kind of above where things are happening. So I'll demonstrate, hang on. That's with it on. That's with it off. It's nice, isn't it? Nice in that nasty way. Fun. So that is the Activier One10T, which is a magic little box that does everything from, you know, low volume home practice to surprisingly loud gigs, really quite loud gigs if you then stack a few of them, because you can have one of these will drive 2 more passive ones. Tweeter on, tweeter off. With the tweeter up, it's also a rather good little PA speaker and guitar FR modelling speakers. So if you want one thing to do guitar and bass, this does it rather well. Yeah, it's turned into a jack of all trades, master of many. Just don't expect it to play a huge rock gig on its own, but if you want to practice sort your tones out for your huge rock gig, you can do that. You can record with it. It'd be great in the studio. It mics really nicely. SM7B on there. We've got a JM47 room mic, and my work is done. Goodbye, internet. I'll be back. Like, subscribe, buy our stuff, because I mean, I don't want to boast, but it really is the best you can get. Everyone says that, not just me.